Hi, Julia. How are you today? I'm so excited to have you on my podcast. Could you tell us who you are, what you do, and how did you find carnivore?
Thank you, Christina. Well, first off, I found you at Hack Your Health, and you are such a lovely human being. I feel very blessed, and I love that you are welcoming women into this community in a really special way. I've been listening to your podcast. Just turned 61, so I'm listening to these ones on menopause and wish I had heard it before because I didn't even know I was going through it. Isn't who I am. I live in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, and I have been the buyer of body care, anything you put on your body, gifts cards in for a natural food company, which is a local family run. It's not Whole Foods. We're called Kimberton Whole Foods, but we are not Amazon Whole Foods. So our lifestyle that we've been living, I've been doing this for 30 years, looking for whole food, looking for these things. And trust me, I know what's in them sometimes, but we like do the research. So that's kind of my background in this part. I have a whole story behind the carnivore, but that's where I live right now. And my husband is also carnivore. He's actually the perishable buyer for the company that we work for. So that means the meat, the cheese, the cottage cheese, like all the things that we do. And that's kind of where I work.
Yeah, so tell me about how you found carnivore.
I didn't find it. Rich found it, my husband. That's another story to lead up to that if we have time. But there was a time 3 years ago that I sat on this couch with pillows underneath behind me. There's a story before it, but the reason I sat there for 3 months was really because of digestive issues and hemorrhoids that no one that I've ever heard carnivore has described before. um, not well anyway. And it was debilitating. I think I have a handicap thing still in my, it was so bad. Yeah. So I found it through Rich because he found it through his own reasons. And he was playing, YouTube videos so loudly. And I had the door open a little. I was like, what? What are they saying? And he said, I just have done this for 3 weeks. Have you not listened to me? And I said, I can't do that. My digestive is, they were digestion. And I thought, I can't eat meat like what you're doing. And he said, well, could you feel any worse than you're feeling right now? And you know what? I couldn't have. I mean, we literally bought a car based on how I could slide my butt into the car without hurting. So our life revolved around my issue for a good year and a half. So that's how I started carnivore. And that was September 2023. So that was a little over yeah, almost, well, in September, it'll be 3 years.
That's so exciting. So let me ask you this. You sent me a little bio on you. So
Yeah.
I based my questions around that. And I was curious if you could tell me like your upbringing and how you experienced life, growing up.
Yeah, so, my dad is I think he is 86 right now, and he's right now in Arizona. He was an Episcopal priest. My mom wanted to be an Episcopal priest. My parents actually met in college, but you couldn't be a woman, in that field, and whatever. So she married him, and I totally grew up in the church. And I found myself in that first or third row or where like very judged, I cared about what people thought. And I knew I needed to because my mom would tell me what dress to wear, and she, I'm sure, felt the same way. People would come into like where we lived was called a rectory, like they would, like it was your home, but it was open to anyone in the community. So they would just kind of pop in whenever, and it was not always convenient. So I could feel my mom's stress about that. And I feel like I've held that. And I would love to say that I'm now 61 years old and I don't care what people think. I really want to say that. Truth is, I've always cared what people think. I mean, and I still, my kitty's coming in here now. Yeah. And I have strong women that I know. that don't care what people think. And it's just not my thing. I care so much what I'm so empathic. I care so much. Like, I feel like that's why things carry me where I go. And I don't always 100% understand, but I know I should be paying attention. So, yeah, it was a really hard thing. I mean, it wasn't just like where you stood, it was how you looked and what you were wearing and it was the thing. Did you go to church? So that was the beginning, but that was really early on, but that stayed, I think, a lot with me. And trust me, my parents are amazing. Like, I don't know if it's a bad thing, just something happened.
Yeah, so you talked about how it was always pressure for you to like be perfect and to show up a certain way. And that definitely has a huge impact on our later years. I always warn my kids that what you say to your kids now, they'll be wondering about it when they're 30 and 40 years old. And my one son has two daughters. So I'm like, you don't want them trying to
Yeah.
figure out what you said to them when they were
No.
a kid when they're 40 years old. So just be clear and be kind and don't expect a ton, you know?
Yeah, right. And it's funny too because, I'm doing this carnivore thing and my three children are pretty much grown. My oldest is I think 24, but then there's 10 years difference between my oldest and 2 years between my oldest and my second. So, I have adult children now. I'm in my 60s. I started this at 59. I think these are going to be the best 10 years I've ever had. I don't have grown children. I'm not retired, but I love my job, right? So I'm not retired. I love my job. I now have two grandchildren. And guess what I can do? Sit.
That is amazing.
Could have never done that before even 2 years. Now, can I get up? I can get up with a chair or a little help at the moment, but that's going to change in a month. That's a goal. But, that's crazy. I could never have done that before. It means a lot. There's a lot to do on the floor with grandchildren, especially when they're like 2 and under.
I mean, just sitting on the floor before was impossible. So the
Yeah,
fact
yeah.
that you could get down there and really
Listen,
have a good time with them and not be
I
in pain
couldn't
is
sit on a couch. I couldn't sit what I was going through, I couldn't sit in a car. I couldn't sit on a couch. I'll tell you what I sat on. I sat on a sitz bath, on a toilet, and sometimes 12 to 15 times a day. I literally was so sick. I made myself a desk in my bathroom because I knew I was going to have to sit on that sitz bath to not be in pain and survive and be able to concentrate. It was horrible.
I can't even imagine how that was. So let me ask you this. So did something happen 5 years ago? Like what happened?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
So what I did, which is what I recommend to anyone, and here's the thing. I love to remember what it's like to first start out because people who listen to you, Christina, especially women, they're just beginning. And you know what? You want to hear the beginning. And unfortunately, I beg people to please make a journal. It doesn't need to say like, oh, today I was feel it means how did I feel today? What did I eat? What made me feel upset? Did I eat cheat? Like, I don't know, but you can go back in time and say, my goodness, you can see patterns, or you can really help a fellow carnivore who needs to know those things. Yeah, because my immediate things, I mean, they're the usual. I think I just found my no, I did. I just found my journal. It's like the usual. I got off all my medication. I woke up one day, I had no brain fog. In 2 weeks, what I'm about to tell you about these horrible hemorrhoid things, in 2 weeks, I had no inflammation. I stood up like a normal person. And I literally had a handicap thing for my car because my doctor said, like, not everyone can see these internal disabilities, but you can't walk from here to here. Like, it was pretty crazy. But I mean, my usual things were like the no brain fog. And I mean, in my notes, I have 2 weeks and then I think 2 months, but it was no brain fog, I'm reading it right off my notes. My panic attacks stopped. I mean, I would have panics and they would start in the back of my neck, and all I would do was start to get worried about something. Could be even what was happening with me. And it would go up in my head. And I was like a different now I wake up in the morning, I'm like, hello world, how can I help? It's crazy. Stomach issues, skin tags. I felt happy. I was so more patient and empathetic with other people, where before I just would, I don't know, get annoyed. I used to have belly rumbling. I would drink like an electrolyte, eat something. It'd be like, it was just so embarrassing. Anyway, then I found I was smiling all the time. My sleep was really good. And then I looked back and I thought, 11 years ago, well, I grew up in the 70s. I was born in 65, but I grew up in the 70s. Nobody was really fat then. Maybe there was one kid in sixth grade. And you know what it was? Just a little, he's probably the most handsome kid, in the whole thing when he grows out of it. But I was heavy. I was overweight. I work in an industry where you got to go to these shows and you got to work and walk. And I would have ankle bracelets, knee bracelets. I would ask our rep who would say, like, can I take you to dinner? I'd say, like, could we get a Uber? He goes, it's 3 blocks up. I'm like, yeah, but I can't walk. And I had high blood pressure and anxiety and it all went into COVID. And I feel like even as women, going through change. I felt like in my job, I was so pressured 24 hours a day for an entire month to find toilet paper, sanitize. Like I was calling countries in the middle of the night, like, what can we do to help where I work? And at the same time, all these changes were all of a sudden I was having I was doing all these things with well, it started a little earlier than that when my coworkers noticed I was sweating to death in the humidity. But I thought it was just me. My hair would go out to here and I would sweat. It turns out I was going through menopause and I didn't know it. So when I turned 55, which by the way, my husband says, like, are you freaking kidding me? We could have had a kid at 50. We could have. But now 5 years, 6 years later, I recognize, like, I was going through that in a very stressful time of what all of us were going through. And for my job, I was searching for all the and it had to be clean, natural. Like, we didn't give in to toilet paper from China necessarily unless we had a fair trade. You know, I have always, for 30 years, I understand what whole foods are and what natural things you put on your I get all of that, that a lot of people in our community that have just kind of turned carnivore are starting to look at, like, wait, if I'm eating this, what am I wearing? What am I doing? What am I putting in my body? But this was the first time I focused on myself and took all that into consideration. You know, if we had to get into specifics, I could tell you that I would love to share with people, my condition because the only person I remember saying it was Laura. And I don't think a lot of people talk about not they say, "Oh, I have indigestion issues." They don't really go as far to say is what that can lead to when it's literally not just hemorrhoids, but internal hemorrhoids, which grow and stay and love inflammation, and they are inflammations. So, you know, besides that, once someone in our community realizes, I stopped saying words like that. I even stopped saying the words like, I didn't like when people said, like, what's up your asshole? I'd say, that's not even funny right now. You don't understand that for 3 months, like I went through it was already happening, but I went through the word, I go to a massage. First off, another advice for women. Find a massage therapist who you love and trust, understands what you're doing, even do it just once a month, and allow them, as you're getting to know your own body, as you lay in bed and feel a hip you never felt before, a boob shrunk. I don't know. Let them get to know your body because mine can tell me, like, oh, you've got a little thing going on over here. You've got that gentleness around me allowed me to get to know my body better. And as someone who just started her 60s, and I feel like women even over 40, our bodies belong to the children we had. They belong to the men and women who have had us. But we don't always have the time to lay down in the morning and look, feel your belly, feel your hips, feel your back, feel your boobs. And one day you say, God, I feel a hip or I feel something. It wasn't until I got to that point where I could go, darn. It's yes, it's the stress. The story behind it I haven't told you, and we won't have time for that today, but it happened, right? So
You can tell us. Whatever you feel like sharing, you can tell us. We have time.
So about 5 years ago, I fell out of bed. Rich and I have a I mean, I fell out probably around 1 in the morning of the morning we had decided to sell our house and move into an apartment over here in Phoenixville into one of those luxurious apartments because during it was a great way to save some money and also start to save money. So I fell out. So I couldn't move my neck from left or right. I was like these hallway it looks like a hotel dorm where I work. So the hallways look like so long. And I would just like look down at the ground, like, I can't get there. I can't get there. I can't get there. I need to start, physical therapy, which I did. And trust me, I don't do anything unless I'm going to do it well. So I did it there and I did it at home and I went back and I pulled my core and I worked my neck. I pulled my core so much that the hemorrhoids that I had already had, which I never tell anyone, got like enormous, like inside and like inside. I'm going to say it looked like that inside an intestine a little and outside, which if you haven't had them, great. If you had, you might have been a first time mother. There she is. It was so bad. I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand for very long period. I told you I put a desk on my toilet with a I'll show you my toolkit, but sat in a sitz back. I just could I missed my father's 80, I don't even know what it is now because it was 5 years ago, 83rd or 86th birthday. I didn't go to my father-in-law's funeral. I just it's only a half an hour and a half away. I could not sit in a car this would be me with everything I do, even here on this couch. It was so bad. Even sitting on the toilet to go, I'd have to put my arm on the counter or the drawer because it felt like it was an elementary school toilet. Like the muscles that pulled. When I got the massage and she would do like the back of my legs, she'd get to like the bottom of my tush and I'd say, "You can't even move something any other way. I have it set." It was so bad. It was just really bad. But I have some tools that I could help someone if they ever have that situation. Um, but that was really where Rich had already started looking. He did it not just for weight loss. He played basketball for, I don't know, last 40 years, like twice a week. And then you know what happened? He got to be closer to 50 and the people playing got closer to 25. So when he got a little banged into and he, realized, and also weight has always been our issue. So he did it like he started listening, and actually I wrote it down because I wanted to give specifics because sometimes he forgets. Because besides, for me, it was Carrie Man. I mean, yes, because Rich had already started looking. I think he looked at he looked at Joe Rogan. He was doing these other things, but you know what he was doing? Leaving the TV on, and then I'd go to bed and have the door cracked a little, and then I would hear him, you know, listening and talking and doing all these things. And I'm like, who are you listening to? And he said, and he did. He said, I keep telling you. So he did it. He started losing weight. He started feeling better. I mean, like 2 months later, he was doing all the cooking as well. He loves to cook. He said, what if you just did this? I said, Rich, I felt I felt like shit. I really just can't think of doing another thing because to me that means another diet. What do I have to what do I have to do? He said, well, you've heard me. He's like, what if I just cook for you? And I said, I'm just going to feel shitty. He said, can you feel any bad than you're feeling now? And I thought, my God, I hope not. Because I don't look like I looked then. Trust me. I was done. I thought, like, I'm going to die before my parents because no one's going to understand the pain. I can't talk about it. It hurts so bad. I went to a specialist. I got up on the table like an OBGYN. And so I love this is a woman's channel. You'll understand. You put the stirrups up, you do the whole, like, all of a sudden you have no power. They went into and they twisted. them without telling me what they were doing. So now the pain that I had is and I'm 5 blocks away and I'm literally sitting up in that car again. I'm like, I almost thought like I should just pull over and call the police. I don't think I'll make it home. Like they were almost angry at me for discussing it. And when I went back for a follow up, or I said, this is not getting better. Now I think I'm infected. They'd closed that section down. It didn't even exist anymore. So now I felt like it never happened. I felt like unseen, unheard. And this is so personal and embarrassing. And now you did something without my permission. I didn't know. The next person said, well, you're going to need surgery on that. You're going to need to. And I've already avoided the surgeries from the neck and the back. And when Rich said that to me, there was no denying ever. How could I feel any worse? And so I would like to ask people that sometimes, like, I know you're not willing because you think it's a diet. And you just think, I can't do another Nutrisystem. I can't do another Jenny Craig. And there's no curves anymore. Find your women friends, find your groups. Go to you, go to Robin. You got to find your people. I'm lucky to have Rich as my people, but these are the people who have these weird stories that you're never going to know about unless you're open and honest. And this is not a diet. This is a lifestyle. And as I got older, these are going to be probably the best 10 years of my life. And the next ones are only going to be better because they're not going to be as worse if I didn't do these 10 years. Sorry.
No, you're good.
But
So, yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
we women, we don't talk about this enough. I told you I went through menopause. I didn't know I went through it because I don't have one mother or grandparent who ever went. I had no advice. No one had anything to tell me. So I didn't know. I just thought I was fat and honestly, fat and hot. My coworkers would laugh because I straighten this crap and I've lost my hair before, but it used to be this, and they would laugh because my hair would go, I'd be sweating be so humid. It would be like out to here. And they would laugh. I mean, not in a bad way, but just be like, wow, we moved to a new building. We're checking it out. It's so humid. Those were my 5 years that I went through this and didn't even know.
Yeah.
So we need to support, I think, each other as women. I think you are so important is choosing this. Someday wish I can do that kind of dedication because I'm just still in this workforce at this point and I want to. And that's, I've tried to do TikTok. I've tried to do these things. I think my Facebook is probably my best thing because I don't have the time. I just have the emotion and energy.
Yeah. So, could you tell me what unhealthy looked like day to day for you? I know that you were in pain. You've told us about the horrific pain that you've been in and that you fell out of the bed and you got injured. But tell me about previous to carnivore. What was your energy like? What was your mood like? What were your cravings like? And what about, I mean, you're a tiny person now, but like, tell me about, your weight and mobility.
I was never a tiny person. I was born in 65. I grew up in the 70s. There were no fat people. If there was one fat person, it'd be like a guy in 6th grade who had a belly, and by the time he was 20, he was like the hottest kid in the class. Like, there just wasn't. Our parents made our food. Sometimes it was casseroles, but honestly, even my mom, she allowed my brother and I to write a quote menu a few times a week so she could kind of get it in her. It was always cooked. We always sat down. I would say toward the end of the 70s, that's when some of the meals came out. I don't even know what you call them because we were almost not allowed to have them, but like the meals that were pre-made. It was
TV dinners, yeah.
TV dinners. Became starting to think about convenience. And so for me, that was late 70s. I was already in high school and this had already changed. The thought of even my friends, even my mom, it was like exercising, like diets, like what are we doing? Because suddenly people started to I wouldn't even say they were fat. They were just a little bit heavier. Now, I'm going to go back. When I was in 11th grade. I was an exchange student in Sweden, and I came home 25 pounds heavier. So that was the beginning of my I didn't n and it wasn't anything in Sweden. It was the fact that I ate a lot of food and I was homesick. So it was a lot of cheese on hard bread then it was, cucumbers and then I learned how to say, like, "How do I get this chocolate?" from a kiosk, and once I learned that as my first sentence, that was my every morning going to school knowing something. So that was it was on me. But when I came back, that's when I went to co I had already pre-accepted to college, so college 25 pounds or whatever. And then on, as soon as I graduated college, I began working at a college, which is where I met my husband, which I'm not sure I'm supposed to say I was in student affairs and had one, but my boss was okay with it. But that's our story. Like we met each other so early on, and we have been doing this together. I wish everyone could have a partner in their home that would make it so much easier. But if you don't and you're the one cooking and people aren't listening, I'd say, stop. I was going to say shut up, but I don't mean that. Stop talking. Don't tell anyone because they always think it's a diet. Don't say anything. Make what you want for yourself. And you eat what you want. There doesn't have to be a discussion in those really extreme situations. And on the other now, I told you, on the other hand, I do feel like I don't always need to I want to tell everybody who's happy and has this experience. Okay. Cause I told you, like, it wasn't really my weight I was pretty sick. But when I went from almost 200 pounds, like 60 pounds later, but then I only keep healing. So I will say, in the last 4 months because I felt different. So I went to a gym for a little bit. I started to do some things a little differently and I realized, "Oh my god, that's when I said I could sit on the floor like I'm healing differently." So the healing keeps on going and that's why I know it's not necessarily like a diet you know? So when Rich and I started doing this and he started doing the cooking, it was just exciting and fun. And when I saw that weight and what I thought was my goal weight in like since the last 2 months, I went to a goal weight and I go between that and 5 pounds, that and 8 pounds and back and forth. And I'm not doing anything differently. I thought I was doing it and I did do it for my health. This makes me feel I can buy some clothes I can wake up in the morning and throw a pair of jeans on. I know it sounds so vain, but it almost makes the life so easier so I can concentrate on where am I getting the fat today or where's the cheapest steak. I don't have to.
I know. So it's interesting. I wanted to know, so when you switched from standard American and how you were living before, and you gave in because he said, just let me cook for you and
Yeah.
just eat it.
Yeah.
What did you notice besides the pain and the hemorrhage? And tell me about that. So when you started, like, how quickly did you notice? Did they heal? Did they just shrink up and go away? You said 2 weeks?
2 weeks, I felt a difference in the pain.
Hmm.
It's taken longer. These are things, and understand that if you have outside hemorrhoids and they are so that bad, they call them skin tags because they never will go away, but you won't have the veins and the blood and the pain. So when I show you my routine, I can explain that a little better. But so in 2 weeks, that inflammation felt but listen, to be able to sit down on the toilet and not hold onto the counter, to be able to, like I told you, I thought it was an elementary school potty sometimes, or not to have a desk or a sit spot. My sit spots were pretty intense. Like there were times, I'm going to tell you something really disgusting and you can cut this out if you want. So when I was at my worst, you sit down on the toilet and you hear pee, I'd sit down on the toilet and that came out my tush. So I would hear the same sound. And I don't think anyone has talked about this, but it's because these internal hemorrhoids, when they're pushed down, of course, are going to release the blood, right? So the noise. was the same. But here's the wipe, especially when you're 55. It's hard it's hard to see blood, but at the same time, it's much more accepting than a guy in the same experience. And I know there are guys, so they don't want to listen or hear. So I could sit down, go to pee, and then I could push like muscles or put my arm in where I knew, and it would sound the same. And it was a direct blood. I mean, that's what happened because and that was the only relief I had because I didn't know how to bring down. Yeah, this is getting, I'm hoping that's not but you know what else? I also, like I said, I hope someone will hear that and be like, I never would ever tell anyone this, but it's a true thing. And if that is happening, you're so inflamed. So even if you just tried keto for 2 weeks or just took out the carbs or sugar, that inflammation went down. It didn't heal very quickly, but it went down very fast. And it took, a couple other months to really get. And now I'm almost, what, 2.5 years into it. And I could be like, that's almost nothing, but I still have to have a maintenance situation, which I have prepared for you. Well, I figured if anyone hears this, you're going to want to know, what do you do? Because I'll tell you what you don't do. Don't spend $1,000 over 3 years getting the best hemorrhoid creams and the best pills, because that's not healing. It's your diet that heals you. So stop putting petroleum on
Ugh.
your body, you know? And even me being in the industry I am, I can't even, I can tell you now when you're healed, what works better are things that are plant-based because you're not eating the plants. Suddenly those become the best healing fact. Arnica, calendula, like oils, like they become working so much better because you're not ingesting them. It's like that's my medicine now.
Yeah. So let's talk about what you ate when you switched over and Rich started cooking for you. What did you eat? And I can't wait for you to show us your routine and what you use to help you with that. But
Yeah.
let's talk about like, what did you actually start eating? Did you think, oh my gosh?
Okay.
Yeah.
So first 3 months, strict lion. It was just
Okay.
salt and beef because that's what he was doing. Not very hard when someone's cooking for you. And I'm not complaining because I couldn't stand up to cook. So that really was if you really need to heal and you're not doing this to lose weight, do that lion diet. Do the steak, do that extra salt, do those electrolytes. I know you can slide in a little butter in there. And then after those 3 months, it wasn't even like, oh, I did 3 months. It was like, oh, I feel a little better. Let me try some other things, some cheese. I'm not sensitive to cheese. I love it. So if I do too much and I get a stall, I see it. But I'm like way beyond that now. So I understand what people are saying. I get that. Uh, But that's pretty much it. Like, luckily, working where we work and he's the perishable buyer. So he's the one meeting with the Amish farmers, the local farmers, like finding the best quality and getting, and sometimes it is, could be liver, it could be organ meats. I've eaten raw before. I posted that. I'm not afraid to eat raw from the right people. I've eaten raw eggs, somewhat on a regular basis. That's just where I feel better. That's not for everyone. Yeah, but yeah, so those are and then we got to almost a year now, and I don't know if I have pictures, maybe you have some, but then he got a little more creative. But you know what? Honestly, like I said, you could put cottage cheese, shredded cheese, chicken shredded, like you can make so many things, and it's so great seeing, I love to watch like Emma Man because
Yeah. I love
she was
her.
so, oh my God, you remember how shy she was 3 years ago? And now she's, and the tallow and her funny thing, she talks really fast, like my mom said. But it's so fun seeing those things and
Yeah. Jen. She's my favorite. Yeah. I love
right,
her
but
so much.
encouraging people like well, I didn't want to do this today, but I got to tell you, and then she does it. And it's like 3 minutes later, it's like, that's exactly what
Love
I'm
her.
talking about. This is how we share with each other to say, I don't care. Because sometimes she could be a little bit like, you know, you're a little much and you can be a little much with someone, but isn't it amazing to share? I just really feel like the women who are starting in especially, you got to find your people and it doesn't have to be just women. Like I'm telling you, like Carrie was probably one of my first people because only because he hooked us on to Dr. Avadia and all these people. He was only 3 months ahead of me. So it was like boom, boom, boom. Got it, got it, got it. By the way, I have a theater in my town, Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, that will show your movie, you know. But these conversations, then going 3 times now is that I've seen him, and seeing you get it. Like, it's a little family over there that's been building and supporting, and how do we get this, how do we get the well, I showed you what I try to do locally. I mean, I
Yeah.
I don't have time to have, what I wanna do, a station, but what I've promised is that is as much as I can locally, I've found a group of women. They found me. That's a story. It was my first carniversary, and I cut up, we made meat, steak, cut up cheese. We put them in these jars, and I took them around to where I work, but I also oversee a gift and garden center, and I went in joyfully singing because there's not always a lot of people in there. It's my 1 year carniversary. And this woman came up and tapped me on the shoulder. She said, "Did you just say this is your 1 year carniversary?" And I thought, oh, God, here we go. And she said, 2 months ago was mine. So she said, I've got 3 other people. We got 2 other, and now once a month, really, how can I don't want to start the conversation and I wanted to be like, this is it for you all. Now I just want to gently have the conversation. How do we do it? So Rich and I, well, the license plates are funny stories for our 2 year carniversary. I wanted to surprise him. So I went through all the paperwork at Pennsylvania and I got this license plate and I waited because I hadn't, he usually knows everything. And I didn't tell him 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. So I finally got a phone call. You can't get through the DMV. And they said, oh gosh, we lost that one. And I said, well, what can I do? They said, you can make it a K instead of a C. So I did. So we got that within 10 days. And then a day later, we got the one they lost. So we now have 2 carnivore license plates, which stimulates conversation whenever you're in a parking lot, good or bad. It's a conversation, even if someone's thinking about it. I got my favorite denim jacket. I went online and I bought patches all over because I just want the conversation. Well, you saw, I think, the jacket,
Yes.
but so I wear it out because someone will be like, "Oh, I like that cow thing." It's like, "Oh, really?" Like, and then, oh, tattoos. So my nephew drew us some lion tattoos,
Oh,
which Rich and I both
cool.
got. And then I sent you another one that we also have. So there's a commit. There is a commitment here. Lion was the diet was my first. It also happens to be part of my maiden name, which is Caroline. So I've had that. But I don't know. I think I just feel like I want to be supportive of women and I also want to be supportive of my local community. And besides standing on my deck and getting, by the way, and I can show you this video, there was a Ropers. What's the woman from the Ropers? They have a thing. They go up and down. I mean, there's thousands of people, and I got them to stand outside my deck and say, "We love meat." And I recorded it. They didn't even know what they were saying. They were just so happy they were on video. Those are the weird opportunities. Just take them, whether it's a t-shirt or a tattoo or or, whatever. The opportunity to have the conversation is not, I don't feel like I'm so impelled that I have to teach. I feel like have a conversation and let it be light. And if that leads someone to something,
Exactly. So I met with Jenny Middich. I met her in Hack Your Health and in Tampa, and I
yeah,
had her on the podcast. She and I both, I interviewed her, she interviewed me. And on my interview, I believe it was my interview, she said, I am not a tugboat. I'm a lighthouse. When it comes to carnivore, I don't tell people they should do carnivore. I show them how I live. So I want to know, you talked to us about, how you got to carnivore, how you got started, which made you the food. And I wanted to know if you thought of, like you talked about how easy it was. Was there anything that was really hard for you to do that was carnivore?
tell people.
Well, personally for you, like, how did you experience
Yeah,
carnivore? And was
yeah,
there
no,
anything that made you go, "This is so hard"?
no, no. I didn't have that experience, but I have to say again, you have to journal. And I don't mean like today I fell in love with this boy. No, I mean like at nine
It's
o'clock I was
data. Yeah, it's data. You wanna collect data. Yeah.
because if you don't do it early, one, you can't look back and answer your questions, but two, you can't help other people. So when they say, when did you feel those migraines go away? I'll be like, yeah, well, like, let me look. If you're helping someone, coaching or helping another woman or person, please, when, and I've said this to people in my family, like document, but I don't mean today I tripped and I mean, like, I've been trying carnivore and today I had a headache. And then the next day, I didn't have as much as that, or my blood pressure was high. All of a sudden, I woke up today and I went, wow, I feel happier. Those are the weird things to write down for yourself. So you can, when you stop, if you stop in 2, 3 weeks, you can say, I should look back on that and why'd I stop? But when people ask us, it's hard to remember. I do remember in 2 weeks that that inflammation went down. It didn't ever heal. That's why I said I have a safety kit here to show anyone who's either going through it or needs to maintain. Because I'm not a doctor, but I think I've come up with my own toolkit with certain things, and it's not expensive, which people just think this happens, you go get this pill. This happens, you go get that cream. And the truth of the matter is, depends on how severe, but that's not really what your body's looking for something more bioidentical than something with petroleum that's sold at, our drugstore. So I'd love to be able to share, that.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it in just a second. So, what I wanted to ask you now is, women in midlife are going through so many changes and they don't understand what's happening. And they go to the doctor, and the doctor just says, "Hey, your labs look fine. We'll see you next year." It's just perimenopause or menopause or aging. And they don't really know what to do. And they're like so stressed about it. And they just want to get back to that earlier version of them. And for my clients, I like to help them look at it and go, what if I could arrive at a better version of myself?
The earlier you could try to kind of get that metabolic diet, of course, we know that's, really going to help. My experience is that no one can ever really feel when you're going through these changes, even ourselves. We all feel it differently. And I don't expect any doctor, male and female, to understand exactly. Now, I will say that our doctor happens to be bioidentical. Hormones was his specialty. I did not use them because I didn't know I realized to at that time. But it's so nice to meet up with someone who understands those. And if it's not a doctor, it could be a nurse practitioner, it could be a so many midwives can jump in on this for you and understand where you've come from and where you are and give support that is not necessarily drugs. And if it's not even that, like I said, besides massage, lymphatic kind of, there are so many things can help with this, identical hormones or one, like that are more homeopathic that are made specifically for you. I feel like women have been ignored for a long time. And I also feel like they've been ignored by certain women doctors because this is the career, right? Like, this is how we make our money. This is why, for me, your group in this communication and staying in touch with whether it's a coach or just other women's group, we can only support each other. We already know our issues. So to have this help with it and say, you know what, you went off today, but tomorrow we know now that it's what we're eating that's affecting us so much, right? So why wouldn't we share this information?
Absolutely. So, another thing that I think women are afraid of, I'm going to ask you a question about not completely this, but this just popped up for me. They think that fat will make them fat and that they shouldn't eat fat. But let me ask you this, and then you can go off on that. So, what did you believe about food as a vegan that you don't believe now?
So I'm going to go back and retake. I was a vegan for a mere period of time. I was more vegetarian and really honestly, just because where I work in my lifestyle, right? I always thought the amount of calories you brought in compared to the amount of calories you burn. If you bring in more calories than you burn, you're just going to be fat. And I figured I'm always going to bring in more calories than I burn because I don't want to burn any calories. But that's always been my theory. And many diet programs did the same thing in the end. Weight Watchers does it. Let's be honest. The only thing I ever found that worked was curves. And that was just that workout circuit for women, 30 minutes a day. It went out of business, which kind of sucked. But I think it's that I think that people really think if you bring in this amount of calories and then you work it. So I was done with that. I was like, you know what? Here's the thing. I'm almost 200 pounds. My husband loves me no matter if I'm 200 pounds, 100 pounds. Like I knew that. I don't know if I loved myself, but I was busy. I had 3 children and my first and third are 10 years apart. So I was working this and full time. Now I have 2 grandchildren. So my view has changed in the last like I said, I think I have more energy now with my grandchildren than I have with my own children. And I'm still working. I'm trying to go back to your regular question.
Which was vegan. What did you think?
Yes. So I don't know because I think we only did vegan because that's where we worked and that's what we bought. And maybe we couldn't afford the meat at the time. I don't know. I just always thought that Whole Foods and vegan were health. Well, that's how my industry was. It's only been in the last 3 years that we got the meat has come back. Tallow has come back. These are not just that you eat, but you wear and you put on, and it could be something that's just popular right now, but it's been 3 years for us. Whole Foods, the Whole Foods, not my Whole Foods. Okay,
Okay,
that's
so tell me about fat. What do you think about fat? And does fat make you fat or does fat make you healthy and help your hormones?
that doesn't make me fat. That makes my hormones way better. I love eating it at night. Like we'll eat it for dinner. And then sometimes that's all I'll eat is an entire bowl. Rich just made it last night. It's so delicious and so good. And I never wake up feeling bad from that. So, and now we get it from like a butcher, which would be if anyone, and sometimes it could just be an effort to, hey, take a Saturday morning drive. Maybe there's not someone around you. Oh, wow. It is so good.
So what did he do? Take a suet? What was that?
Yeah, so our cuts like we'll ask. So anytime they're doing like ribeye cuts and they're cutting the fat and throwing it out, they just put it in a bag for us. Now that's like person the most local to us. We actually had someone in at one of our other stores, and he would do it. He'd cut it up for us, but right now they're not doing that. So we get the fat. Rich cuts it up. No, he air fries it. Hang on, Rich. How long do you air fry that? What do you say? He says he does it for about 20 minutes. It gets really crispy on the outside. The smaller the pieces, the more like a crouton. If
Hmm.
you like chewier ones, you just cut them a little bit bigger.
Yeah. So he just made a bowl of it for you. How
Kind
loving. That's so kind. Because I actually called the Kroger here and I asked them, and the guy cut me up all these pieces. They were so beautiful. It was suet. And he wrapped it up for me and I got it. And when I left, they told him, "You can never do that again. All the fat goes to some local blog,
no,
someplace."
Christina, that's so funny because there's certain places here you're not allowed. We actually found a place like 40 minutes from here. It's only meat in the store. And when we asked, they're like, in Pennsylvania, for whatever reason, you're not, unless you're have a like they can do it if you have a certain butcher thing, but we could go to like Wegmans or Giant or like a regular grocery store and you see them. Even Costco, sometimes we see them cutting the fat. And I'm like, could we? And they said in Pennsylvania, where real in certain retail, we can't.
Yeah,
Well,
they said that some place comes and gets all of it, so I don't know,
all
but
right,
I left there that day. It was the best. When I buy it actually, they give it to me at the fresh market here, and it's huge. It's in this big bag, and it's not really it takes a
nice.
long time to cut it up, and, yeah, I've gotta get a really sharp knife because it's very hard to cut, but it is so delicious. My husband was in here, and I said, "Do you wanna taste it?" And he was like, "Mm, I'm good." And so I said, "Just taste it." And he tasted it, and he goes, "Hmm, not bad." I was like, "Right? It's delicious."
First time I had it, we cut it so tiny, it was so crispy. I mixed it in scrambled eggs. It tasted better than bacon. It was
Mhm.
like, I don't even know.
It sounds bizarre, I know, for the listeners. Now let me ask you this. What's one thing you wish someone had told you before you started carnivore?
I would say journal, journal and share. Be more honest. Maybe spend a little more money on certain things at the beginning because really it's that steak that really I feel cures it at the beginning. I told you I only did 3 months of steak and salt. It's okay, like, make the investment, pretend it's your FSA and you're just doing something for yourself, like, or give yourself a gift or ask someone, "Is it my birthday or Christmas soon? Like, give me some steaks." I feel because that heals so much quicker, and then your head is so clear, you can figure out the rest. But the journaling as well, not just for yourself, but to be able to do something like this and share. Like that's if I had journaled correctly, I wouldn't have all these notes that I can't read. And they're somewhat not, it's not that they're not, because they're somewhat important to somebody, but they're not, you could do that. You could have the next book, is my guess, if you had journaled correctly and
Oh,
ask other people to do so. And then let's combine it and make a woman's book, not just a doctor's book, not just but we could do like a shared journal, poetry, experiences, like, and support and uplift each other, and not just us. Like for me, it's other communities that, are not hearing this. I'm experiencing, look at my last name, you'll figure it out. But we've got, we were trying to support each other and it's hard because we don't really have the written down stuff. And journals gone to publishing would be something that we could pass on. And I don't think it would take that much, to be honest, to collect all our thoughts and have someone that could do that.
yeah, I think that journaling is important because you can really get some perspective on where you were and
Yeah.
where you are and where you're going. So I wanted to tell you I'm doing the lion diet this month. I've
I
been
know.
carnivore. So I started carnivore a month after Carrie Mann, who is the he's not the main guy. Adam is also with them, Adam Lacey, but they are putting a movie out, a documentary next month that is Healing Humanity, the power of a proper human diet. And it was so amazing to meet them they were the first people inside the parking garage. And I was like, okay, don't freak out. Don't freak out. And then I went over and I was like, it was crazy, but I was calm. But I was so happy to see them and to meet them. Now, I was gonna say to you that I actually keep a journal, like, because women need to, like, log things. We need to
Yeah.
keep up with our menstrual cycles and,
Yeah.
our regularity and just different things, and I have these little calendars in my bathroom, these little foldable calendars, and they have, like, 2 years in each one, and I write down everything I can think of because I want to know if I have to go to the doctor, I wanna be able to put my finger on things,
Yeah.
so That's something that women can do for themselves, as well as opening their mind up to the possibilities of eating meat and eating fat and actually just letting themselves do that and feel the way that it changes their body and the way it literally makes them feel better. Like you said, you started to smile and be happy and have lots of energy, you know? So when someone says to you, carnivore is really extreme, what do you say to them?
Me, I'm smiling at you. I'm happy. I walk into our convenience store to buy, like, I don't know, coffee or something. And I'm looking at everyone like, why are you not smiling back at me? Why do you not feel like this? I don't know. I think I might be a little nuts right now. And that's why I said to you, I'm trying to do things locally. And that's why I said, like, how can I engage people? I can go and wear this jacket. And I tell you, someone will stand in line and go, hang on, I'll do it too. Hello. Wait a second. Do you eat pig? Or someone will say, like, oh, you're from the 60s? Because on the front, I have like a, like it just engages. And our license plates have not stopped engaging. But you know what? Funny thing is, not from a negative way. So I guess I want to tell the world. I just want to. And I'm not a shy person.
Well,
I'm
show us your kit. Show us your
Well, I'm going to show you my kit, but I'm show you
yes.
if I can, like where, do you see how I'm at top of the street there?
Yeah.
That's my deck. So everything happens in this town through this main street. So I'm standing out there engaging, wearing t-shirt. Again, doing anything I can from Julia's work. All right, I'm going to show you something. So are
Okay.
we allowed to say the whole So if you ever have hemorrhoids, there are some simple things, and that would be do not buy stuff over the counter. Honestly, just get get a tallow cream. This happens to be my local one because I live in Philly, and this is a travel size. But just use that on. Hang on.
Now, does that get grease like on your underwear? Like what happens?
You gotta yeah, that's part of it. And you have to use a baby wipe when you put it on, but you always have to use, and I'm not kidding, you can't use toilet paper. It's first off too dyed and too gross. You need to use a baby wipe until you're done using it in a gentle way. Always when you're in your worst, and then when you're done, this is maintenance. Baby
And these are
wipes.
natural, right?
Yeah,
These
well,
aren't just baby wipes.
these ones happen to come from Kirkland. I usually buy the ones from our store, which are natural, but these are pretty clean and you get a lot for your they definitely don't have a scent, which would be
Good.
important.
Yeah, that's
I also
important.
picked a tallow soap, but what's weird for me is I like the tallow shampoo bar from this particular, but it doesn't matter. You got to get a tallow soap. You got to put it in something separate from anything else in your shower, but you got to use that every day. And this is when you're going through it and when you're done, whether it hurts, whether it doesn't. I'm telling you, this is pretty. This is my big container of the, but I also put that all over my belly. And then this is my sitz bath, which I know people think is funny. This saved my life. And then the last thing I would say is one of these little massagers. We saw these show, I think you saw.
Mhm.
What I didn't realize is that when you have this happening, and even as it continues, you gather gas within your hips. So sometimes people think, "Well, I have hip pain," especially women. If you wake up in the morning and you feel that, and trust me, you use this a little on your hip, all of a sudden you use the bathroom because the muscles around your tush and your hips are very related. But when you're sleeping, especially the gas kind of builds up. So you wake up thinking, oh, I have hip pain. But sometimes you don't. Those aren't,
Wow.
that's not all I have, but I'll just give you those for today.
Okay.
And they can also, check yeah.
I want you to tell us where people can find you, and I'm going to put all your links in the show notes too.
A whole lot of links these days. I used to be hashtag Meet Julia, MEAT. And you can still find me there. I just haven't done much recently. But honestly, my Facebook, which is my first and maiden name, Julia, CARLYON 65. And then I'm at Facebook.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that in the and so you meet with ladies in your community once a month and
We
encourage
do.
them,
Yep,
and you guys talk about carnivore and support one
yep,
another.
yeah. I met them first because they had gone to a Jersey meetup with Dr. Lisa, but then one of the women found me where I work, and then we all connected.
That is so awesome. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and talking about something that nobody talks about. It's so important for women to support women. And thank you for being willing to like share your story and share your transformation.